You're watching AI Wealth Wire Desk, where we analyze the shifting labor economy through public earnings reports, VC funding databases, and employment data. Educational analysis only. Here's the headline that most career advice misses. 65% of workers actively resist adopting AI tools, citing moral, ethical, or principled objections. And right now, they're being quietly displaced by the 35% who don't. This isn't speculation. This is what happens when you look at Fortune 500 adoption rates, earnings call transcripts, and Bureau of Labor Statistics data side by side. The companies that are deploying AI aggressively are shedding headcount in traditional roles while creating fewer, but higher-paying roles for AI-fluent workers. The workers resisting adoption aren't protecting their principles. They're volunteering for the job market's exit door. Let's start with the adoption numbers, because this is where the story gets real. The adoption acceleration research shows that 55% of Fortune 500 companies had deployed generative AI tools into production workflows by Q4 2024. That's up from just 18% 2 years prior. That's a tripling of adoption in 24 months, and it's accelerating. Meanwhile, studies tracking individual worker adoption tell a different story. About 65% of workers report they either avoid AI tools outright or use them only when forced by employers. The reasons vary: ethical concerns about training data, fear that they are enabling job displacement, worry about creative or intellectual dishonesty, or simply the friction of learning new systems. These objections sound principled, they feel morally coherent, and they're economically catastrophic for the people holding them. Here's why. When a company like Microsoft, which reported $245 billion in annual revenue for fiscal 2024, with Azure AI growing at 29% year over year, deploys Copilot at scale across customer-facing teams, they're not creating 5 new positions for every person replaced. They're creating 1 senior AI workflow designer and eliminating 4 mid-level roles. The net job loss in that segment is real, but the company's revenue per employee rises. Productivity jumps 15-30% in the first year, according to adoption studies analyzed across multiple sectors. Now, who gets those high-value roles? Not the worker who spent 2 years refusing to touch ChatGPT on principle. It's the worker who spent 6 months learning GPT-4, Gemini Ultra, and Claude Opus, who can architect workflows, who understands prompt engineering, who can evaluate AI output critically. That's not a coincidence, it's selection pressure. The valuation signal **. Let's look at where capital is flowing. That tells you where the economy is actually moving. OpenAI, as of early 2024, reached an annualized revenue run rate of $3.4 billion. Anthropic, Claude's creator, just closed a $5 billion funding round at a $20 billion valuation. Google pumped $2 billion into Anthropic. Microsoft has committed $13 billion to OpenAI development. These aren't venture bets anymore. These are trillion-dollar companies betting trillions that AI-augmented work is the future. That capital isn't flowing into ethical AI resistance infrastructure. It's flowing into adoption tools, workflow integration, and enterprise deployment. The money literally goes toward making AI more embedded in daily work, which means the economic pressure to adopt only increases. When 55% of Fortune 500 companies have already deployed GenAI, your employer isn't an outlier if they're pushing AI adoption. They're behind the curve if they are not. The real cost. Displacement without safety net ***. Here's the brutal part. Job displacement from AI adoption is real. Studies suggest that roles with high repetition, data entry, basic content moderation, routine analysis, customer service triage are the most vulnerable. These aren't abstract future jobs. These are jobs being eliminated right now. BLS data shows that employment in data entry occupations has declined 3% since 2020, while demand for data science and AI specialist roles has grown 36% in the same period. The gap is widening, and it's not because companies are running out of work. It's because fewer people are needed to do the same work when AI is handling the routine cognitive labor. Now, here's where the decision to avoid AI adoption becomes economically self-defeating. If you're a data entry specialist who refuses to learn AI tools, you're not protecting the data entry job. That job is being eliminated regardless. You're just guaranteeing you won't qualify for the data analyst role that replaced it, the role paying 40% more, with better benefits and actual career growth. The worker who learned to prompt engineer datasets, who understands how to validate AI output, who can architect workflows, that person got hired. The person who said, "I'm not comfortable with this technology," got riffed. No negotiation, no exception for principles. This pattern is playing out across sectors. content creation, financial analysis, software development, customer support, every knowledge worker category is experiencing this bifurcation. The adopters are consolidating into higher-paying, more specialized roles. The resistors are watching those jobs disappear and wondering why their job search is getting harder. Asterisk, the compound effect. Why this accelerates asterisk, here's what most people miss. AI adoption isn't linear. It's exponential, and it's exponential because of network effects and capital velocity. When Microsoft deploys Copilot across Office 365, which reaches 400+ million monthly active users, suddenly every company competing with Microsoft-using companies feels pressure to adopt. It's not a moral choice anymore. It's a competitive survival choice. If your competitors' knowledge workers are 20% more productive, your margins compress. Your only option is to deploy AI faster. This creates a cascade. Adoption accelerates. Productivity gains compound. The productivity advantage of early adopters gets larger, not smaller, and the economic penalty for resistors gets steeper. VC funding data confirms this. Generative AI startups received $1 billion in funding in 2023, and funding velocity hasn't slowed. It's shifted to earlier stage companies building application layers on top of base models. OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google aren't the only winners. The winners are companies that integrate AI into existing workflows and make adoption frictionless. The losers, companies trying to compete without it, and the workers inside those companies who refuse to learn it. Asterisk, the moral objection paradox asterisk, there's something important to understand about the 65% statistic. The moral objections are not unreasonable. Concerns about training data, about labor displacement, about concentration of AI capability in a few companies, these are legitimate policy questions. They deserve to be part of the conversation. But here's the paradox. Individual worker resistance doesn't solve any of those problems. It just removes you from the economy where those problems are being solved. You can't negotiate your way out of AI adoption by refusing to participate in it. The technology is being deployed whether you adopt it or not. The only variable is whether you're the person displaced or the person operating the tool that displaces others. This is where it gets uncomfortable. The ethical stance, I'm not comfortable with AI, often masks a practical mistake. The belief that you can sit this out. You can't. The labor market doesn't work that way anymore. The choice isn't use AI or don't. The choice is learn to use AI or get displaced by someone who did. Asterisk, the forward signal asterisk data indicates that this pattern will intensify. You've already seen the first wave of AI adoption in Fortune 500s and major tech companies. The next wave is SMBs and mid-market companies, driven by cheaper API access and lower implementation friction. OpenAI's API pricing has dropped 95% since GPT-3 launched. Claude Opus is becoming more affordable. Google is pushing Gemini into free tiers. As friction drops, adoption accelerates, and as adoption accelerates, the labor market pressure on resistors intensifies. If you're 25 and in a knowledge worker role, you're potentially looking at 40 years of career where AI fluency is the baseline expectation, not the differentiator. People who learned AI tooling in 2022-2023 aren't celebrating a competitive advantage in 2030. They're operating from the baseline that everyone else is using the same tools. The people who are still resisting in 2030 aren't finding moral high ground. They're finding that their skill set is obsolete. This isn't a warning about AI itself being bad. It's a warning about the economic cost of principled resistance in a market where everyone else is adopting. The research is clear. Early adoption of AI tools correlates with higher earnings, better job security within companies deploying AI, and access to roles that literally didn't exist.